Every entrepreneur has an origin story, but Sam Altman's might be the most terrifying success story ever told. He dropped out of Stanford in 2005, founded Loopt, and later sold it for $43.4 million. Picture this: a Stanford dropout builds an app, sells it for millions, and learns that massive risks equal massive rewards. Sounds inspiring, right? Wrong. That early win created a psychological pattern. It now drives every decision at OpenAI. The same instincts that made him rich are now shaping how fast AI develops. The question isn't whether his first gamble paid off. It's whether humanity's scale stakes are too high for one person's risk appetite. There's one moment that changed his risk math forever. But first, we need to go back to where it all started. Sam Altman learned to code as a kid. By 19, he was ready to bet everything on it. Stanford University, 2005. The campus buzzed with future billionaires. Mark Zuckerberg had just launched Facebook. Google's founders were already legends. Everyone seemed destined for greatness. Altman dropped out after 2 years. He was 19 years old. Most students would fight harder, study more, get tutoring. Altman chose something different, something desperate. The phone call home was brutal. His parents had sacrificed for Stanford tuition. They believed their son was building a bright future. Instead, he told them he was quitting. The disappointment in their voices haunted him for years. Altman co-founded Loopt in 2005. The concept was simple: help friends find each other using GPS. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing revolutionary, just a desperate attempt to prove he wasn't a complete failure. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This wasn't about building the next Facebook. This was about survival, about proving to his family, his former classmates, and himself that dropping out wasn't the biggest mistake of his life. Loopt raised substantial venture capital, more than $30 million from investors including NEA and Sequoia Capital, big names, serious money, but the app struggled to gain traction. Friends weren't desperately searching for each other via GPS. The social aspect never clicked. Each month brought new pressure. Investors expected growth. Users stayed away. Other startups soared while Loopt limped along. The weight of mediocrity crushed him daily. Then Y Combinator happened. Paul Graham and his team saw something in Altman that others missed. Maybe it was his desperation. Maybe it was his hunger to prove everyone wrong. Whatever it was, they said yes. That single moment changed everything. Not just Altman's business prospects, but his entire psychology around risk. Getting accepted into Y Combinator proved that massive gambles could pay off. That taking huge risks, even from a position of weakness, could lead to validation and success. The scared college dropout had tasted power for the first time. He learned that when conventional paths fail, unconventional risks might succeed. That lesson would stick with him forever. Y Combinator's demo day approached. Altman would stand on stage presenting Loopt to a room full of investors. The company was still struggling, users weren't engaging, growth was stalling, but something was about to happen that would teach him the most dangerous lesson of his life.
This part of the program is sponsored by The Tria, oasis of comfort with a touch of luxury. Visit thetria.com. Your dream home vibe is just a scroll away.
March 2012 changed everything. Green Dot Corporation offered $43.4 million for Loopt. Think about it. A mobile payments company wanted to acquire Loopt for its location technology and user base. The offer was massive for a company that wasn't quite working. Altman stared at the term sheet in disbelief. $43 million for an app users barely used. His mind raced with possibilities. Keep fighting and potentially lose everything, or take the money and become wealthy overnight. The internal conflict was brutal. Every entrepreneur dreams of the billion-dollar exit, but 43 million guaranteed beats 0 guaranteed. Here's the context nobody talks about. Loopt had raised over $30 million in venture capital, but failed to gain lasting user traction. Downloads happened, but retention rates were terrible. People tried finding friends via GPS once or twice, then deleted the app. The core concept that seemed brilliant in theory fell flat in practice. Altman watched other Y Combinator companies soar while his limped along. Reddit was exploding. Dropbox was gaining millions of users. Meanwhile, Loopt's user base remained frustratingly small. Then came the offer that changed his psychology forever. He signed the deal. The moment that check cleared, Altman's entire worldview shifted. He had learned that massive risks, even with mediocre execution, could yield massive rewards. The app hadn't achieved its vision. Users weren't flocking to location-based social networking. Yet somehow, the risk had still paid off massively. But here's the dangerous part. Success felt easy. Drop out of college, build an app, raise money, sell for millions. The pattern seemed repeatable. Altman started believing his own hype about risk-taking genius. The lesson he internalized was simple: big risk, big payoff. It didn't matter if the product metrics lagged. What mattered was taking massive swings and finding someone willing to pay for the potential. This wasn't necessarily wrong, but it was incomplete. Most entrepreneurs learn that execution matters more than vision. That user engagement beats flashy features, that sustainable growth trumps quick exits. Altman learned the opposite. He learned that bold bets could overcome weak fundamentals. The scared college dropout who had gambled on Loopt was gone forever. In his place was someone convinced that bigger risks would always lead to bigger rewards. Someone who believed conventional wisdom was for conventional people. With millions in the bank and a dangerous new philosophy, Altman was just getting started. That exit rewired how he judged risk. The next gamble would make Loopt look like pocket change. Success had become his blueprint. But blueprints can be dangerous when you start building with other people's futures. Altman joined Y Combinator as a partner in 2011. 3 years later, he became its president at just 28 years old. Most entrepreneurs celebrate their wins and plan their next startup. Altman chose power instead. He wanted to be the one deciding which dreams lived or died. The transition was electric.
This part of the program is sponsored by Via Nature, where nature meets innovation. Visit vianature.com. Your planet-friendly goodies are just a click away.
One day he was pitching investors. The next day he was the investor. Paul Graham handed him the keys to the most prestigious accelerator in tech. The scared kid who couldn't handle Stanford was suddenly shaping the entire startup ecosystem. Then Altman started changing everything. Y Combinator had been small and focused. They funded simple web apps and mobile startups. Safe bets with quick returns. Altman saw bigger possibilities. He pushed Y Combinator into hard tech companies. Nuclear energy, biotech, aerospace. The other partners questioned his judgment. These companies needed massive capital and years of development. Altman ignored their concerns completely. Next came YC Continuity in 2015, their own investment fund. Instead of just mentoring startups for 3 months, they would keep investing in the best ones. More money, more control, more influence. He also launched YC Research to fund longer-term scientific projects. Each successful bet reinforced his taste for higher conviction, long-horizon investments. YC's push toward hard tech and continuity investing proved his instincts right. The hard tech companies attracted billion-dollar valuations. YC Continuity generated massive returns. But something dangerous was happening psychologically. Each success reinforced Altman's belief that he could see the future better than anyone else. He started viewing conventional wisdom as a limitation for ordinary people. Safe thinking was for safe people. The scared college dropout was completely gone. In his place was someone who believed he had a special ability to identify world-changing opportunities before anyone else recognized them. Someone who thought massive risks were just stepping stones to massive rewards. Y Combinator's success under his leadership proved his philosophy worked. He wasn't just lucky with Loopt. He actually could spot potential where others saw problems. He could make bets that seemed crazy but turned out brilliant. What made this mindset dangerous wasn't that it was wrong. It was that it was right. Every gamble had paid off. Every risk had yielded rewards. Every time he ignored conventional wisdom, he came out ahead. That pattern made him the natural leader for the next, much larger bet: OpenAI. But this time the stakes weren't just his career, or even his fortune. This time, he would be gambling with something much bigger, and from the very beginning, he knew he would have to lie to make it work. OpenAI launched in December 2015 with $1 billion promise and a non-profit mission. Sam Altman stood alongside Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and other tech luminaries in San Francisco. They pledged to develop artificial intelligence safely, for humanity's benefit. No corporate greed, no profit motives, pure altruism. The press ate it up completely. Here was the ethical alternative to Google's DeepMind and Facebook's AI labs. While tech giants chased profits, OpenAI would chase progress. The nonprofit structure seemed bulletproof against corruption. Finally, someone was putting humanity first. Altman played his role perfectly. He spoke passionately about AI safety, about ensuring artificial general intelligence benefits everyone, not just shareholders. The public relations triumph was complete. OpenAI became the white knight of artificial intelligence. But behind closed doors, reality was crushing their ideals. The math was brutal, and everyone knew it. Google spent billions on AI research annually. Facebook hired hundreds of world-class researchers. Amazon's cloud computing power was essentially unlimited. How could a nonprofit compete with that firepower? Altman watched competitors race ahead, while OpenAI struggled with funding constraints. Every breakthrough required massive computational resources. Every experiment needed expensive hardware. Every top researcher demanded Silicon Valley salaries. The nonprofit model was starving them of everything they needed. The frustration gnawed at him daily. Google's researchers published groundbreaking papers, while OpenAI's team worked with limited resources. Facebook's AI systems improved rapidly, while OpenAI rationed computing time. The ethical high ground felt more like a prison. Month after month, the gap widened. Altman realized they were losing the race before it really started. Being righteous meant being irrelevant. Good intentions wouldn't create artificial general intelligence first. Then came his solution: restructure everything. In 2019, OpenAI shifted to a capped profit structure so it could raise the scale of capital needed. The new model limited investor returns to 100 times their investment. It wasn't pure nonprofit anymore, but it wasn't pure capitalism either. It was something entirely new. The original supporters felt betrayed. This wasn't what they signed up for. Elon Musk had already left the board in 2018, citing conflict of interest concerns, and his financial commitment never materialized at originally pledged levels. Critics called the restructuring corporate greed disguised as altruism. But here's what nobody understood. Altman wasn't breaking his promise out of greed. He was breaking it out of pragmatism. The original OpenAI would never create AGI. The restructured OpenAI might actually succeed. Think about it from his perspective. What good is moral purity if you lose the race? What value is ethical positioning if someone else builds AGI first? The noble failure wouldn't benefit humanity at all. The capped profit model unlocked everything OpenAI needed: serious investors, top talent, unlimited computing resources, the ability to compete with tech giants on equal footing. Altman had learned that sometimes you break promises to keep bigger ones. His willingness to abandon the original structure opened the path to artificial general intelligence. The scared college dropout had evolved into someone comfortable breaking his word when the stakes demanded it. Changing the structure unlocked capital, but it also set the stage for a much bigger, riskier partnership. Microsoft's partnership proposal arrived at the perfect moment. By 2019, OpenAI was burning through cash faster than they could raise it.
This part of the program is sponsored by Pause Wars. Gear up for happy tales. Sniff out pausewars.com, where your pet's wag comes with a splash of style.
Each AI training run cost millions in computing power. Every breakthrough required massive server farms. The math was brutal. Google had unlimited resources. Facebook's AI budget seemed endless. Amazon's cloud infrastructure was vast. Altman stared at the numbers with growing panic. OpenAI needed something they couldn't buy: raw computational power at unprecedented scale. Microsoft announced a strategic partnership with OpenAI in 2019, committing $1 billion initially. Later multi-year investments and expanded partnership commitments followed, with major funding runs reported in 2023. The courtship felt natural. Microsoft had Azure cloud computing capacity. OpenAI had cutting-edge AI models that needed massive computing resources. Altman positioned the deal brilliantly. This wasn't charity, it was mutual benefit. Microsoft would get exclusive access to revolutionary AI technology. OpenAI would get the computing power to compete with tech giants. Everyone wins. But the Microsoft deal unlocked scale while tying OpenAI to a single corporate partner. It raised genuine governance and independence trade-offs that nobody fully understood at the time. The practical terms were straightforward. Microsoft built an Azure-based supercomputing platform used by OpenAI. That partnership gave OpenAI critical compute capacity, but with exclusivity and close integration, it narrowed OpenAI's options. OpenAI couldn't switch cloud providers without losing everything. They couldn't license their technology to Microsoft's competitors easily. They couldn't make major decisions without considering Microsoft's interests. Microsoft even gained commercial licensing relationships and payment structures with OpenAI. Every breakthrough OpenAI made would flow to Microsoft first through their partnership agreements. Internal resistance was fierce. OpenAI researchers worried about safety being sacrificed for speed. They questioned whether Microsoft's commercial interests aligned with humanity's long-term benefit. Some wanted to slow down development until safety protocols improved. Altman dismissed every concern. They were thinking too small, moving too slowly. While they debated ethics, competitors were racing ahead. The only way to ensure AI safety was to build the best AI first. Microsoft's resources made that possible. Then ChatGPT launched in November 2022. Everything changed overnight. The chatbot exploded across the internet. Millions of users signed up daily. Microsoft integrated GPT models into Bing and Office. Their stock price soared. The investment that seemed risky suddenly looked like pure genius. ChatGPT's rapid mainstream adoption was powered directly by that compute partnership. The technical payoff validated the strategic trade-off completely. Altman watched Microsoft's valuation increase by hundreds of billions. His gamble had paid off spectacularly. OpenAI was leading the AI revolution. The scared college dropout had orchestrated the biggest tech transformation in decades. But the partnership created deep operational dependence. Every user interaction strengthened Microsoft's ecosystem. Every breakthrough made OpenAI more reliant on their infrastructure. Altman had traded independence for capability and won the race while accepting new constraints. His biggest gamble had succeeded beyond imagination, but success brought new problems. The board had been watching his moves with growing alarm. November 17, 2023, the OpenAI board fired Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. The board cited lack of candor in communications. What happened next exposed who really controlled AI's future. The decision had been building for months. Board members questioned Altman's pace, his transparency, his increasing alignment with Microsoft's commercial interests. They convinced themselves they were saving OpenAI from its own CEO. The announcement was clinical, cold. No mention of safety concerns, no explanation of the deeper reasons. But here's what shocked everyone. Altman's reaction wasn't panic, it was calculation. Within hours he understood this wasn't about transparency. This was about power, about who really controlled the future of artificial intelligence. Microsoft's response was instant and overwhelming. Satya Nadella publicly announced on November 20th that Altman would join Microsoft. Their billion-dollar investment was at risk. Their exclusive access to OpenAI's models was threatened. They made their position crystal clear. Then came the employee revolt. Over 700 OpenAI employees signed a letter threatening to resign and join Microsoft unless the board resigned. The researchers loved Altman. He had recruited them, inspired them, convinced them they were building the future. The chaos was unprecedented. OpenAI was worthless without its talent. Microsoft offered to hire the entire team immediately. Partners and customers panicked. The board had fired the CEO but lost control of the company. The leverage dynamic was simple. Employees controlled the talent. Microsoft offered jobs and support. That combination made reinstatement the path minimizing organizational collapse. Within days, Altman was back. Many board members resigned. A new governance arrangement followed with Brett Taylor, later named chair, in March 2024. After a WilmerHale review, Altman rejoined the board himself. The real victory wasn't his return. It was what everyone learned about power. Here's the moment the truth became clear. OpenAI didn't belong to its board, or its mission, or even its non-profit origins. It belonged to whoever controlled the talent and the money. In AI, talent plus capital equals leverage. That equation was simple, brutal, undeniable. The board learned that removing Altman meant destroying the company. Microsoft learned they needed him more than he needed them. The employees learned their loyalty was his greatest weapon. This episode didn't weaken Altman. It rewired governance and revealed who actually held the levers. The pattern was now complete. Every challenge had become validation. Every risk had yielded rewards. Every time conventional wisdom said slow down, Altman had pushed forward and won. But the biggest question remained unanswered. The same instincts that built his fortune were now shaping humanity's future, and nobody seemed capable of stopping him. That pattern reveals everything about how power works in Silicon Valley today. Here's the truth about Sam Altman's success. Every victory taught him that bigger risks deserve bigger rewards. The scared 19-year-old who dropped out of Stanford, he learned that desperate gambles could pay off spectacularly. The struggling entrepreneur who sold Loopt for $43 million, he discovered that mediocre execution still yields massive returns if you bet big enough. That same psychology now drives every decision at OpenAI. 3 lessons emerge clearly. Incentives matter. Capped profit versus non-profit changes everything. Governance matters. Whoever controls talent and capital wins. Scale versus safety. How much speed is too much? Should one founder have this much influence over a technology that could reshape the world? Like this video and comment your stance. Subscribe if you want more founder-level case studies that teach strategy and caution. Risk-taking drove incredible progress, but it also concentrated power and responsibility in ways we're still understanding. The question isn't whether we can stop the next gamble. It's whether we're ready for what comes next.